This is the Chapter 6 Summative Assessment Review, Problems 1 through 4. For Problem 1a, you need to solve the system using any method. And so, since we have both of these equations in y equals form, the best method to use would be equals values method. Because if we want to know if y equals negative 2x plus 3, what does y equal? Well, y equals 7x minus 5. So we can plug that into the bottom equation here, and so now we have both equations set equal to each other. Now I'm going to go ahead and solve for x, and we want to move the x to the side that has a greater value, and 7 is greater than negative 2. So we're going to add 2 to both sides of the equation. Inverse property of subtraction is addition. We created a zero pair here. 7x plus 2x equals 9x. Now we want to move this term over to the right side because we want to get x by itself. Inverse property of subtraction is addition. Created a zero pair. 13 plus 5 equals 18. And now we have multiplication. Inverse property of multiplication is division. Divided by 9 because that creates the giant 1. What you do to one side, you do to the other. So 1 multiplied by x equals x. 18 divided by 9 equals 2. And now that we have half of our solution, we have the value of x, we need to plug the x value into either of the equations, the original system. And so I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the top equation. And so we have 7 multiplied by x equals 2. So now we have 7 multiplied by 2, which equals 14. 14 minus 5 equals 9. So the solution to our system is 2, 9. And remember to always plug your solution back into the original system into both equations. Just because the solution works for one equation doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for both. Now we're going to go ahead and solve this system of equations, and we know that x equals negative y minus 2. So if we know x equals that, we can take x and plug it into the bottom equation. Because we're going to do 3 multiplied by x, well, what does x equal? Negative y minus 2. So I went ahead and plugged it into the bottom equation. And now we need to simplify this by distributing this positive 3 to both of these terms. So we have 2y, I'm rewriting the equation, and now 3 multiplied by the quantity of negative y minus 2, so 3 multiplied by negative y, and then 3 multiplied by negative 2. So 3 multiplied by negative y is negative 3y, 3 multiplied by negative 2 is negative 6. And now we can combine like terms. We have like terms. We have y terms here and y terms here. We have more negatives than positives. So we know it's going to be a negative y term or a negative y value. And when the signs are opposite, you subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. So we have negative 1y or just negative y. And now we're going to do inverse property of subtraction, which is addition. Created the zero pair. What you do to one side, you do the other. We have more negatives than positives, so we know it's going to be a negative value. Signs are opposite, so we subtract. 9 minus 6 is 3, so negative 3, because more negatives than positives. Zero pair. And now I can simplify this by doing two things. I could divide both sides by negative 1, or I can multiply both sides of the equations by negative 1. And so negative 1 multiplied by negative y equals positive y. Negative 3 multiplied by negative 1 equals a positive 3. Now we have the value of y for our solution, and we need the value of x. So we're going to go ahead and plug it back into either of the equations. And so I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the top one. I could have plugged it in the bottom one, got the same solution. And so what is y equal? Y equals 3, so I want the opposite of 3. So I'm going to put the y in parentheses, the y value, which is 3. So what is the opposite of a positive 3? Negative 3. And so now we have more negatives than positives. Since they're both negatives, you know the value, the sum of these is going to be a negative. And when the signs are the same, you add them together. So negative 3 and negative 2 equals negative 5. So the solution to our system is negative 5, 3. For 1c, I need to solve this system, and the preferred method would be the elimination method, because I don't have either of these in y equals or x equals form. And to use the elimination method, I need to create a zero pair with the x terms or the y terms. And I can do, I'm going to go ahead and do the y terms, and I can make a zero pair by multiplying the top equation by a positive 3, and I'm using the 3 here. And the bottom equation I'm going to multiply by 2, and I got the 2 from here, so I'm going to take this 2 and bring it here, and the 3 here. Now this is a negative 3, but the reason why I'm choosing a positive 3 is because when I multiply 3 multiplied by 2y, I get 6y. And when I multiply 2 by negative 3y, I get negative 6y, which creates that zero pair. And then I can't forget, I have to distribute this 3 to each of these terms. So 3 multiplied by 3x is 9x, and 3 multiplied by 2y is 6y, 3 multiplied by 12 is 36, and then for the bottom equation, 2 multiplied by 5x is 10x, 2 multiplied by negative 3y is negative 6y, 2 multiplied by negative 37 is negative 74. And now I can go ahead and add the two equations using the elimination method. 9 plus 10x is 19x. Here's where we are eliminating the y terms because we created a zero pair. And then 36 minus 74. We have more negatives than positives, so we know it's going to be a negative. Signs are opposite, so you subtract. Negative 74, and 74 minus 36 equals 38, so it's negative 38. And now we're going to go ahead and continue to solve for x. We eliminated the y term. Inverse property of multiplication is division. Created the giant 1. What you do to one side, you do to the other. 1 multiplied by x equals x. Negative 36 divided by 19 equals negative 2. And now we have our x value for our solution. Now we need to find the y value. And we can do that by substituting it into either the top or the bottom equation. Either one will work. And I'm going to go ahead and substitute it in the top equation. So it's 3 multiplied by x. What does x equal? X equals negative 2. So now I have 3 multiplied by negative 2, which equals negative 6. I want to get this term over to the right side. Inverse property of subtraction is addition. Created a zero pair. What you do to one side, you do to the other. So we have 12 plus 6 equals 18. Still don't have y by itself. This is multiplication. Inverse property of multiplication is division. We're dividing by 2 because that creates the giant 1. 1 multiplied by y is y. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So now we have the y value. So the solution to our system is negative 2, 9. And again, always plug your solution back into both equations to make sure that it's true. For number 2, we need to determine how many months will it take for both gems to cost the same amount of money. And both of these equations are linear equations because they have a constant rate of change, and they also have an initial value. So for 24-hour fitness, it has a sign-up fee of $150. So that's what it costs before you even start. And then $35 per month. So that's your constant rate of change, is $35 per month. And X represents the number of months. Y will equal the total cost. For Family Fitness has no joining fee, so it costs $0 to sign up, but $60 per month. You could also write it as Y equals 60X. Now we need to determine when the both gyms will cost the same amount. So we're going to go ahead and use the equal values method. And to do that, we're going to take those two equations and set them equal to each other. Because Y equals 60X, what does Y equal? Well, Y equals 35X plus 150. So we can plug it in for Y and set them equal to each other. Now we're going to go ahead and solve for X. We're going to get the variable to the side that has a greater value, which is 60. So we're going to subtract 35X from both sides. 0 pair. 60X minus 35X equals 25X. Inverse property of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by 25. Creates the giant 1. What you do to one side, you do to the other. 150 divided by 25 equals 6. So X equals 6. So both gyms will cost the same amount of money in 6 months. X represented the number of months. If you were asked to find out how much money will that be in 6 months, you can take X and plug it back into either of the equations. And I did it for the bottom equation. 60 multiplied by 6 equals 360. So it'd be $360 in 6 months. For number 3a, we're going to solve this equation for the variable d. And we're going to do that by multiplying the two binomials on each side of the equation. So first we're going to distribute the d. And we get d multiplied by d, which is d squared. D multiplied by 2 is 2d. Now we're going to go to the second term. Negative 5 multiplied by d is negative 5d. And negative 5 multiplied by 2 equals negative 10. Now on the right side of the equation, d multiplied by d is d squared. D multiplied by negative 6 is negative d. Second term, 5 multiplied by d is 5d. And 5 multiplied by negative 6 equals negative 30. Now you can see on both sides of the equation we have like terms. So we're going to combine the like terms. 2d minus 5d, more negatives than positives. So signs are opposite. So we subtract 5 minus 2 is 3, so it's negative 3d. And then on the right side, more negatives than positives, so you know it's going to be a negative. Signs are opposite, so you subtract. 6 minus 5 is 1, so we're left with negative 1d or negative d. Now we're going to get the d squared over to one side, and so I'm going to subtract d squared from both sides. 0 pair, 0 pair, so both of those sides of the equation cancel out. And now we still don't have d by itself, so we want to get the variable to the side that has a greater value. And negative 1 is greater than negative 3, so we're going to add 3d to both sides. Creates a 0 pair. And now we have more positives than negatives. This is a negative 1, so we know it's going to be a positive. Signs are opposite, so you subtract. 3d minus 1d equals 2d. Inverse property of subtraction is addition. Created 0 pair. What you do to one side, you do to the other. We have more positives than negatives, so we know it's going to be a positive value. Signs are opposite, so you subtract. 30 minus 10 equals 20. Inverse property of multiplication is division. Divide by 2 because it creates the giant 1. 1 multiplied by d is d. 20 divided by 2 equals 10. So d equals 10. For problem 4, we need to convert the linear equations to slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So we need to get this into y equals mx plus b, so we want to get y by itself. So we're going to add 2x to both sides, which creates a 0 pair. These are not like terms, so you can't combine them. And so I'm going to put the positive 2x first because we want it in mx plus b form. So we get y equals 2x plus 8. Problem 4b, we want to get y by itself so we can get it into y equals mx plus b form. So we're going to do inverse property of addition, which is subtraction. Subtract 4x to both sides, created a 0 pair. And now we have 2y equals negative 4x minus 6. I put the negative 4x first because we want it in mx plus b form. This is multiplication. Inverse property of multiplication is division. Divide by 2 because that creates the giant 1. And what you do to one side, you have to do to each term on the other side. So we have to divide both of these terms by, divide both of these terms by 2. And so 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 multiplied by y is y. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. And then negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So for 4c, we want to get this equation into y equals mx plus b form. So we want to get y by itself. So we're going to subtract 5x from both sides. Creates a 0 pair. Now we're left with negative 3y equals negative 5x plus 21. Inverse property multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides of the equation by negative 3 because this creates the giant 1. And remember, it has to be to both terms on the right side. So negative 3y divided by 3 equals y. Negative 5x divided by 3, negative 3. So a negative divided by a negative equals a positive. And I'm going to keep it in fraction form. So we do 5/3 x. And then positive 21 divided by negative 3 equals negative 7.